Ladies and gentlemen, we have a treat for you today. I am here with a good friend and an awesome musician, the one, the only, Mr. Nate Myers. Nate, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, my brother. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us
Likewise.
for Musically Hitched. I've been looking forward to this since we first talked about you joining us on the episode, and we've got a lot to get into. So Let's get into it, shall we?
We shall.
So let's talk about your start just as a musician. We've known each other for several years now, but I don't want to take that for granted for the listeners. I want to kind of take it back to the early stages when you first got started. So tell us where you're from and, anything you'd like for us to know about how you got started on your musical journey.
Okay. Well, I was born in Columbus, Georgia, on the Fort Benning base, military base. My father's military, retired Army. I've lived all around the world my entire life. Germany, Korea, Kansas, a little bit everywhere. Wow. So I'm pretty well rounded in that area. I started playing the saxophone in middle school in 6th grade in Germany. And from the very first week I played the horn, I knew that was it. It just changed my life.
So were you introduced to the horn by anybody specifically, or was it literally just it was a middle school type moment where you just tried something in the band and this is what, hey, you should try this? Some people have that story. Well, they didn't really pick, like the band director picked for them? Well,
it was more so at that time, it was for the girls. I thought it was going to be cool. I played saxophone and all that good stuff. So we had, in beginning band, we had a specific day where we went around the band room and tried out different instruments. And I tried the tenor sax specifically. And like, as soon as I blew into it, like the first note that came out, it was effortlessly. And everybody in the band room, like, whoa. I mean, it didn't sound good, but it was just like, whoa, okay. Like, and so it was like something about that just attached to me. And it was love at first note. And my parents were both ministers, and I started out in playing in church. The very first week I received my instrument from school, that Sunday I was playing for service for church. And I was playing 3 notes, a song, the same 3 notes the entire service. And it just grew from there, basically.
That's awesome. So is there anybody else in your family that you know of that also played instruments, period, let alone sax?
Nobody. Now my sister sings. So she's my younger sister. Okay. And she has perfect pitch and everything, but we're the only ones.
Okay. The only ones. Are you the only 2 children in your immediate family that your parents?
It's 3 of us. Myself, I'm the oldest, and I have 2 younger sisters.
Okay, so you're the oldest. So you're the first one to get it, and the first one in the family line. Literally.
Exactly.
Okay, so the legacy literally starts with you.
Right. That's no awesome. No pressure.
None at all, right? None at all. So basically, for Columbus is what I know about you. So when did Columbus, Georgia come into the picture?
Well, my mother she's from Columbus as well. So when my dad ended up being stationed at Fort Benning, it just worked out as far as that. So even growing up, I always went back to Columbus to grandma's house or visiting aunts and uncles. And basically, and we ended up moving back to Columbus my junior year in high school. Okay. And so I ended up finishing high school there. I was drum major in high school, all that good stuff. I was deep in the marching band, all that great stuff. So, I mean, music was always around me. And I also played in church growing up, like I said, PK, preacher's kid, for those that don't know. And so we were at church 8 days a week, so yeah. So I had no choice but to, exactly. So
if I hadn't grown up like that, I wouldn't know what you meant by that. You saw I didn't flinch when you said that.
Right. I was trying to see you catch it. Yeah.
No, it was like, sounds familiar. That's another
Right.
So that's awesome, man. And another thing I didn't know, and which is the beauty of us having these conversations, it's amazing how much those of us in the music community have in common.
Right.
My dad retired from the National Guard. Now, what's different is we didn't do the whole tour of duty. I have an older sister, Malia, and she got that part of it. So, but my dad, was in Germany. He was in Fort Lewis, Washington, Oklahoma, made his way back to North Carolina, which is where
Hmm.
I was born and raised. So that was
Wow.
definitely a part of my childhood as well,
Oh
but in a
yeah.
stationary way.
Right.
But
But
Fort Benning to you was Fort Bragg to me in North Carolina.
got you. Okay. Got you. Yes, sir. Hey, so, but you know about having the military dad and
Oh yeah,
what comes
yeah.
with that. So
The
yes.
discounts and the PX and all that stuff.
Right. Right. Right.
I can't remember how old I was, but I'm sure I was. It was I had a pair of fatigues pretty early in life, man.
Right. Exactly.
The
Same
GI
here.
Joe had a whole nother meaning in our house,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So basically, middle school is ultimately kind of like the earliest exposure that we can think of right now, and the sax and
Well,
your first in line.
no, actually
Okay.
not. It's not. It was around fourth or fifth grade. We were in Korea, and
Oh wow.
we ended
Okay.
up going to a church up there, and we were Church of God in Christ. That's how we when we first started out, really going to church was like fourth grade, fifth grade around that time, and
Okay.
it was a very small church. And they didn't really have that many children, but they had only one choir. It wasn't a men's choir, a women's choir, none of that stuff. It was just one big choir in the church, and that was it. And I was the only child in the choir. So I mean, it was something about it. I just wanted to try to sing or something. So I might have been the altos or something because my voice wasn't it hadn't changed yet, so I was still singing high and stuff. But
Right.
that
Right.
was my first real exposure with music in general, and I enjoyed it. And from there, that's where when I went to transition to middle school, I ended up trying the saxophone, and I realized I had a niche. I was like, hey, I
Yeah.
might be onto something.
So you were singing. You sang first, or do you still
I
sing
can't
now?
sing now, so
No.
I can't sing. No, but but
No,
yes,
you know your lane. You know your lane.
right. I know my lane
I got you.
exactly. I know my calling.
So when did you realize that you were musically hitched? So we've been exposed to music. We've gotten exposed to instruments. When did you realize that you were hitched and it wasn't just a hobby? It wasn't something that you were going to put down one day. It wasn't a phase that you were going through. When did you realize you were musically hitched and that music would be a way of life for you and even a career path?
Well, that's a good question. As far as a way of life, now I initially when I was hitched, musically hitched, um, it was around middle school, the same time playing in church, and my ear was just like I practiced nonstop. Like I had no life. I was downstairs in the basement getting on my parents' nerves, playing all types of stuff and all that good stuff. So I just had an instant love for it. And over that course of time just in middle school, I knew I was not going to ever stop playing. But as far as making it a career path, a career choice, it was more so maybe towards the end of college. And when I first initially entered college, I thought that the only career you could have in music is being a band director or a music teacher, and that's the only thing you can do. Like you can't to make money and to
Right.
make a living.
Right.
And then the older I got, I kind of got a little more wise to certain things and realized, oh, okay, this is possible. And then seeing other examples of people such as yourself, that's making this happen, I'm like, okay, this is doable. So it was
Absolutely.
more so towards the end of college where I was like, okay, it's a possible I can possibly make this a career. I just at the time I still wasn't sure how or
Mhm.
when, or if, but I knew that it was a possibility.
Well, a lot of people, even to this day, still think that's one of the only ways that you can make a living as a
Right,
musician
right,
is by teaching music, and
exactly,
it's because it's challenging to do. That is the
right,
reality of this industry. When you choose this path, you don't choose this path in a lot of cases. It chooses you, right? Would you agree with
right.
that?
I agree.
You literally you didn't have any experience with that horn. You just tried it, and for
Yeah,
whatever reason, as you said, effortlessly, the notes came out.
yeah,
So it's a gift that you were given that you didn't choose, and
right,
it chooses you before you choose it. And somewhere along the way, we collide and we become musically hitched. So
exactly.
that's a powerful thing. And when you have that revelation, like for me, it was I was around 8 years old when I first started playing
Hmm.
instruments, and I started on the drums and matriculated to the bass, as I've talked about in a previous episode. And it was just interesting how without training, just as you said, it was just a natural connection for
Right.
me with the instrument itself and just with music. Now, I did have some people in my family. My great grandfather, was a legendary musician in my hometown. I never
Wow.
met him, but all of the stories about him, particularly because he was a guitarist, they would come out when we started to learn and play, or this is where you got that from. So for your family, that's powerful because everybody's stories are going to go back to you
Right.
as the
Right.
as the originator of the music gene.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
that's good stuff, man. So talk to me about college. We've gotten to college now, so it sounds like college was a pivotal point in your music
Yes.
career as well. So tell us about where did you do your school, and was it undergrad? Did you do grad as well? What was your story for college?
I started undergrad at South Carolina State University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and
Okay.
I started out as music education, and I wanted to be a band director because, like I said, I thought that was the only career path that I could, lucrative career path that I could take, and I was there. I was there from 2005 to 2009, and there while I was there, I I marched in the band. I was very active with the band, concert band, marching band, jazz band, everything. And it was like you said, it was very pivotal for me. I learned a lot. I learned a lot on stage and off stage.
Mhm.
How to carry myself, how to conduct myself. I had as soon as well, first and foremost, I need to backtrack. I got there by scholarship, but as soon as I auditioned, like as soon as I got up there, my band director, all of my music teachers, they saw my potential and they honed in on stuff that the potential I didn't see in myself. They saw it in me, and they, instilled a lot of wisdom and knowledge in me. And I wish when I look back, I wish I could have took more advantage of certain things back then. But I mean, you're in college, you have social life, girls, there's a lot going on.
Right.
So, I learned a lot. Like I said, it was very pivotal, and it definitely further showed me that, it is a possibility to make a career at performing and, and working for myself. And it was just, if you're familiar with the HBCU experience, it's
Yep.
nothing like being in a community. It's like a small community of people that look like you, and you're not a minority. You're just your family. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. Right. Right.
And it changed my life. I joke about this all the time. Like if I could check back into a dorm right now, I would. Like it was, man, it was a great time. But I ended up later on I ended up transferring to Fort Valley State University in Fort Valley, Georgia, and I graduated with a degree in music performance.
Another
And
HBCU.
yes, another HBCU.
Okay.
And while I was there, I was more so just focused on trying to get out of school by that time. I was went back to Columbus, Georgia. I left South Carolina State. Like I said, I was there from 2005, 2009. I was having a good time. Just go tell like it is. So I had to go ahead and transfer, and I was commuting at that time. I had a full-time job, everything. So I was just trying to get out of school, get my degree and actually just focus. But it was still a family environment and a great experience. I learned a lot there as well. So I mean, college as a whole played a huge, huge part in everything. It helped me to find myself as a person, as a musician, just all of the above. All of the above. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So what was your job at that time? You said you had a full-time job.
Yes. Well, I had a few jobs. I worked at Sam's at the time,
Okay.
and I also worked at a recreation center back home. So I had 2 part-times and so basically 1 full-time.
So you were on scholarship, and that was a music scholarship at South Carolina State. Was that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So that did not transfer to Fort Valley. Did you end up paying your own way at Fort Valley?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I
Gotcha.
did. And but I was only there for 2 years, and I ended up just finishing up and getting up out of there, getting my degree.
Mm-hmm. And your degree is in
Music performance.
music performance. Okay. So
Yeah.
you still finished with on the same path and everything. Music.
Right,
You never
right.
changed your major. I got you.
Right. I started out education because
Okay.
I wanted to be a band director and all that good
Right.
stuff. And then I realized the pivotal point where I realized I want to be a performer. That's really my passion. So I just went ahead and I was obedient. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and be do performance. So
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So you had the experience of playing. Did you do marching band like
Yes.
the typical path for a horn player? I guess that goes into college is that they're also a part of a band. Am I right or wrong about that?
Yes, you're right. I did marching band. I did all of that. Also, I was gigging and everything in college too. I was I was hustling. I was trying to trying to get my feet wet, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you were working. So you were part of the local gig economy, and
Right, right.
now comparing that gig economy to we're about to make a transition. When did
Yes.
you make the move? You were already a Georgia resident. When did Atlanta become home for you?
It was shortly, maybe about a year after I got married, and we had my wife, and how actually it worked out. My wife ended up getting a job first up here, and so it was like, okay, we was already talking about moving to Atlanta. We just didn't know how.
Okay.
How is this going to happen? Because I, you know, I'm in Columbus, Georgia, doing a career in music full time. It's slim to none. It's slim to none, especially with the family on top of that. Because I had no by that time, yeah, I had my first son. My son was already born. Yeah, it was pretty tough. So I was like, we talked about it like every day because well, first let me say this now. You have to have a good support system. Um, like if you're married and you have family, like you have to make sure that both parties are in agreement and they are supportive of these type of steps as far
Mm-hmm.
as working for yourself or anything of that nature. And my wife, she was extremely supportive, and she always saw the potential in me as well. And so we always talked about one day is gonna happen. We didn't know when that one day was gonna be, but she ended up getting receiving that job up there, that offer, and we were like, this is the sign right here. Let's go up there. We ended up moving to Atlanta, and basically I had a 9 to 5 when I was still up there. So I ended up getting a job up there too as well. And but I started getting calls for like gigs and stuff, but I always had to turn stuff down because I had to work.
Okay.
And I just started doing the math. I'm like, okay, if I carry the two here, around this, I'm making more doing this than what I'm doing right here, this office or whatever. So it's like, I ended up just having to, I had to make a plan before I just, stepped out and did music full time.
Exactly.
But I had X amount of work, lined up in music for X amount of months, and it was already set. So within those months, I used that time to go out and network and try to meet more people so I can fill up the months following that. And that's how that worked. That's how the whole transition of going to Atlanta, and that was already always the goal anyway, to come here to Atlanta and to be able to do this, because opportunity is just, it's it's just,
Yep.
it's yeah, it's limitless. It's
Yep.
limitless.
Atlanta is the cultural icon
Yes.
and factory of
Yes.
the world right now, and music is just
Right.
one of our exports, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
so I mean this is good. So we unpacked a few things right there, and I don't want to just gloss over 'em because we talked about several things. You talked about number one, the importance of selecting the right mate
Yes.
as a
Yes.
person who is musically hitched and you're making plans, to make a living or already making a living as a musician. Because even if you are, as you said, even if you have a 9 to 5, if you have the intention when you get into a relationship to one day be a full-time musician or music business entrepreneur, I like to say, right?
Yes, sir.
If that is the case, that person needs to know that right away, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
That's not. It's
I
not
would think
because
so.
you're not really hiding your sax in the house. You're
Right.
practicing at home, and
Right.
you're doing what you're doing to promote yourself. And musicians prior to this pandemic, right? We didn't really play at home that much. Everything is outside of the house.
Right.
So you're gonna be gone. You're gonna be missing, and you're gonna be doing a lot of these gigs and shows and traveling because that's what this business requires. And so if your mate doesn't know that in
Ooh.
the early stages, but they find that out after the fact,
Yeah.
that's they didn't read the fine print, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
you didn't include it, one or the other. So so that's a big deal. So
Right.
we want our listeners to understand that that's a critical part of being successfully musically hitched is if you're in a relationship, being hitched to the right person, the right partner,
Right.
because they're either going to support or deter your
Right.
journey, because you got to be all in.
Yes, sir.
So, what are some ways that you, for those listening, because we have obviously male and female listeners. For those that are not, is your wife? Don't want to make an assumption here. Is she not in the music business?
She's not, but she played in college too. She marched in the band in college. She went to Tuskegee University,
Okay.
and she plays piccolo and flute. So she has an understanding and a respect for the craft.
Got it. Okay, which is different, because not everybody even has a spouse who's a musician or a partner who's a musician.
Right.
So at least there is an understanding of the time it takes,
Right.
what it took to be able to learn how to play
Exactly.
to the level that other people would call you, and you could perform and be in demand, particularly if you're not doing it full time yet, if you're still balancing that with a job. So her understanding, I think, has obviously been critical to your success, even though she didn't pursue the same pathway. She has an understanding of the path that you need to take.
Exactly.
And I think all of us as musicians owe that to our partner, to let them know, hey, here's the journey. Yes. This is what I signed up for, and this is what you'll be signing up for.
Right.
Are you down?
Yes, sir.
And so she sounds like ride or die.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. No question about it.
Absolutely. So talk to us a little bit more about this then. We've talked about having a job and pursuing music at the same time. A lot of people are in that space right now where they are looking to one day be where you are, which is a full-time musician. But you alluded to the idea that even before you were quote unquote full-time, the phone was ringing for you.
Yes.
And it sounded like it was creating problems with your 9-to-5 schedule. Can you expound on that a little bit more?
Yes, it did. It caused a bit of a bit of an issue with the 9-to-5, because, like I said, I kept getting calls for gigs. Are you free this Saturday? Are you free this time? And then, I have to go to work. Or if I took off work, that's going to be an issue within itself. So, it took a toll, but, of course, in the long run, it worked out.
So when did you know that you needed to say goodbye to your days of 9-to-5? Because that's always an interesting point. There's a cool clip on YouTube. I'm sure anybody in the world can find it, where Steve Harvey talks about the necessity of jumping.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now that's not like you know what I'm talking about, but basically, when did you know that it's time to jump? Because as Steve said, when you jump, there's no jumping back up. You're either gonna fly or you're gonna crash, one or the other. But once you jump, whatever you jumped from is no longer under you.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that. That's, oh my gosh, that's confirmation. Okay. So around the time when I left my 9-to-5, I just finished reading his book, and he was talking about jumping. And he also said that I would rather try than never do, and wonder what if. So as if I never even tried to pursue my music or my calling, I will be living in regret, wondering what if I had did X, Y, and Z 20 years ago, or
right.
And that spoke to me so much that it was just one random day, and it was on January. It was the first week of January. It's about 5 years ago, and I was at my job, and I just called my wife and said, "This is my last day. This is my last day." Now I had a plan ahead. Like I said, I had a plan. Now make sure you have a plan. If you're trying to jump out and jump, just make sure you have something lined up. But I knew this was it. This is my last day. I need to do this. I'm suffocating. Like it's eating me up inside. Like I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And ever since I've done that, I found peace just in general. Like I'll come home frustrated from work because I don't want to be there. It's like, it was that type of thing, that type of energy that just, just builds up. And that book alone played a major, major part in that decision. And that's why I'm man. The fact that you just brought that up, like wow, because that was part of the story. That's part of the story, and yeah, it was life changing. It was life changing. It opened my eyes a lot, and I'm glad I made that decision.
Awesome.
Back to talking about having the right mate. She bought that book for me for my birthday.
Okay.
And yeah, so because she saw the potential in me, even at times when I was like discouraged about even attempting. Because I really had the mindset where I was just gonna work this job 20 years or whatever, retire. Like I had that mindset, like I want to play music. I'm a gig on the side and all that good stuff. But I know I got a family, so we got to eat. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just keep this 9 to 5, this cushion 9 to 5, and just play it safe. Even though I'm not happy, but she bought me that book, and that changed my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's the power of a supportive spouse. And
Yes.
there's numerous, pieces of literature out there on that, but
Right.
not
Right.
many probably on the topic of being the spouse of a musician. Those that are in the entertainment business, it is a different lifestyle. And so
yeah.
when a 9 to 5 partner is coming home, the musician is headed out of the door.
Right.
Or the film producer is,
Right.
if your spouse is a banker, they may be home on Saturdays and Sundays. But if
Exactly.
you're working, in the film industry, you're probably going to be gone somewhere on location, potentially multiple weeks, months in a row.
Right.
Touring it's nonstop. You might get to come home, you might not. You may have to fly them out to you versus you going home. It's actually much more practical that they come to you based on how you're moving around versus the other way around. So there are some realities of this business. If you're going to be musically hitched, you have to know what you're signing up for, and you have to be okay with it yourself, first of all, and then also, like we said, your partner. And then you've also added, you and your wife have added kids. How many kids do you have?
3. Two daughters and 1 boy.
So talk to me a little bit about what it means to be married is one thing. We addressed that, but what about being a father? What about being a father and a full-time musician? How does that play out in the life of Nate Myers?
Well, yeah, it's good. I'm glad you asked. Well, because of that, because I work for myself, I have my own, LLC, my business. I want to be that example to my children that it's okay to have your own. I want to at least give them that option to not just think that I have to go to school and get a good job. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I just want to be that example for them, to show them that yes, it is possible to be able to do for yourself. It's possible to be able to have your own business, to be the owner, to be the CEO. You don't have to, it's not, the only option is not just to be the employee. You can be the employer.
Right.
And also, of course, with music and stuff, of course, I definitely expose them to different genres of music, different artists, different, certain things like of that nature. Like my son, he's actually currently taking piano lessons, and he's actually pretty good. I ain't gonna lie.
Okay.
He impressed me. He's impressing me. I'm like, okay, all right. So he's doing it, and my daughter, she sings all the time, all the time. So she's not here now, but she'd be somewhere upstairs singing. But and I love to see that, to see that they are watching dad, and they see that they're showing interest in what dad's doing, and I just want to make sure that I'm remain a good example for them. And like I said, just show them that it's okay. Okay, for example, like you said earlier about building a legacy. We had spoke about building a legacy for generations to come. I want to be able to build that legacy to start this now, so that once they get my age or older and have their own children, they'll know what to do. They know how to handle this and how to continue to build and keep it going. If that makes sense.
That's awesome, man. And so again, like we said, the book started with you. So now the two of them have it. I don't know if the youngest will probably follow, because that's what's typical of the youngest.
Fingers crossed.
They often outpace the oldest. The story remains to be told on that one, but it sounds like they're going to have their own musically hit story as well,
right.
just by watching you, and they got it honest. Same thing with my kids. When you're surrounded by it, immersion is always the best way to learn anything, whether it's a language or swimming, you name it. If you're
Right,
around it
sir.
all the time, it's going to come a little bit easier than those that are not.
Right.
So, and I think you even moving to a music center, their childhood will be very different than your childhood because you had to get it out of the mud, moving around the globe. And then
Right.
eventually you sound like your family settled in Columbus, which was not a music center at all, at least 2 hours away almost from Atlanta.
Right.
But your kids are growing up in the city.
Exactly.
So they're going to be exposed to all the things that you weren't exposed to
Right.
at basically the same age that you were learning to and fall in love with sax.
Right.
So it's pretty cool to see how the generational effect of music can continue to be enhanced. So kudos to you for your commitment, because your pursuit of your own destiny is going to propel them. And this is even if they're not, even if they choose not to be musicians,
Right.
if they choose to, the platform has already been set. The
Yes,
stage
sir.
is set. It's just a matter of whether they want it or not.
Right.
And they can get that from you. They can get the hunger, the desire, and the passion, and the how to pursue it and how to
Right.
fight for it. Dad knows that. The opportunities that you can't provide, you've actually already provided by making them available to the metro area. So
Yes, sir.
we'll see. That sounds good
Yeah.
to me, man. It really sounds good.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank you.
we've talked about Atlanta, right? Talk to me a little bit more about what may not be obvious to people that move here. There are people that move here every day. Probably thousands of people move to the city of Atlanta every day. And many of them probably move with the entertainment industry in mind, not just to be singers and musicians, but at this point, Atlanta, as we said, is a hub for all things entertainment. You may not play any instrument, you just might be good at lighting, and you need to move to Atlanta.
Right.
You
Right.
might be a spectacular film editor, and you move here. You could be a person that scores movies. You could be a person that does voiceovers for animation characters. There's all kinds of reasons to live here. Now, so we've been called the Hollywood of the South for a long time.
Right.
And we might be, Hollywood's biggest rival, period, at this point, just based on
Agreed.
the economy here. So what would you say has been the main reason for your success in Atlanta? Like, just thinking about Atlanta as a whole, how much has this move impacted your ability to be a successful musician, particularly making your living from music?
I mean, like you said, the opportunities are limitless. It's all about building the right relationships with people, and you're even though it's a big city, it's small at the same time.
I
Like,
agree.
word will spread. If you're an excellent film editor or film scorer and you're professional and you carry yourself the way you're supposed to, word will get around. Like, that this person might refer you to somebody else, and then that person might refer you to someone else, and that's just how it builds, and that's how you create this whole hub of people, and where everybody works together. And that's pretty much that's how I've been able to be successful in music, and to be able to maintain everything. Just, it's all about how you, it's more so than just your talent, or just what you're good at. You have to have other things in order to, and that stuff, like I said, it carries. And Atlanta it's big, but it's small.
Big
So,
but small.
yeah.
Yeah, I've often referred to it as a big small town.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Southern hospitality is real, and I think it translates to the music community. And
Yes.
I think in any place that you go, regardless of whether you live in Atlanta or L.A., Nashville, New York, Austin, doesn't really matter. Miami. I think most beneficial is to think about what value you can add
Right.
to the community. If you
Right.
come looking to just take, people pick up on that pretty quickly.
Right.
And there's already so many musicians and singers and film producers here. I was literally at the tennis court with my daughter. We were the only people at the court, only people in the parking lot. There was one other car. and it was a guy who was randomly walking around. I thought he was taking pictures, and he comes up and he extends not his hand, obviously for social distancing, but there was a fence between us because we were inside. And she's having tennis lessons, and all of a sudden, this gentleman walks up and says, "Excuse me," and I turn and look over my shoulder, and he's extending a business card, and he introduces himself as a film producer.
Wow.
I'm like, what are the odds? We're sitting out here randomly in a park, public, having a private lesson.
Atlanta.
and a gentleman walks up and has, of all the occupations,
Wow.
he's a film producer. And I'm in the entertainment industry. That's how easy it is to meet somebody here that's doing the music business, or that's working in entertainment, I should say.
Right.
So you definitely, obviously, so plug for Atlanta here, obviously, but we're both proud to be, residents here. It's an opportunity just in moving.
Yeah.
And then there's the type of person that you have to be. So can you talk to our listeners about the level of commitment, the process and the level of commitment that it requires to make a living as a musician in a music center such as Atlanta, specifically as a saxophonist? Because I think that, keyboards get calls that sax players don't get, right?
Right.
Bassists, drummers, rhythm section is going to get some calls because that's typical. But you're in demand for the saxophone.
Yes, sir.
So how do you create demand for the saxophone?
It goes back to what you said about adding value. And if you show that you can add value to whatever that is, it's been situations where I had to do situations for free just to show what I can bring to the table.
Okay.
And because of that, they'll call me back and, hey, we're going to add you to the budget just because of the fact that you're a good person, or and you can play, but we just like having you around. It's all those things work together, because at the end of the day, you don't, just like a 9 to 5, you don't want to work in an environment with people that you don't want to be around. And the same thing goes with music. The music is not going to be the same when you're on stage with people that you just don't gel off stage. You're going to hear it. It's going to come out in music. So it's like, all of those things, you really have to be committed. You have to have 110% of commitment in doing this. And it's about adding value. Everything in life in general, you should be surrounded by something that's going to add value to you as well. And you should always have a goal to add value to somebody else and to whoever you encounter. And that's outside of music, not even just music. So in correlation to music, you should always, that should be a goal in whatever you do. But yeah, it's all about adding value, and that's how the calls start. That's how relationships are built, because people gonna say, I see something in you, it's something about you that, hey, I gravitate towards you. Like, hey, I want to work with you. At the end of the day, adding value, step out your comfort zone and build relationships. Mm-hmm. That's it. Just like the young man took a step out and came to you with a business card. He had to, you got to step out your comfort zone. You have to put yourself out there in order for people to receive you. So if they don't know what you bring to the table, if they don't know what value you can bring, how are they going to be able to, how are you going to ever be able to flourish or be able to grow in whatever capacity, that you're in, or whatever area, you're trying to grow in. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And to that point, I'll circle back on one other topic, but while we were talking about that particular gentleman, just out of respect for the music culture, I think you have to think about how you, as we talked about just now, we talked a lot about adding value. And even though that was very random, and I could have ignored the gentleman and just said, I would like to be undisturbed right now. This is a private time for my family and I. Because I'm in the entertainment industry, I respect the fact that it takes both me and him to make it turn, right?
Exactly.
And so what I did is I revealed to him that I was also in the entertainment industry. But I was asking him some questions to make sure, as you should. So, we have to learn how to qualify opportunity. Because you talked about, I'm going to circle back to you because I heard you say that all gigs are not paid gigs,
right,
when you're getting started. But In his particular case, obviously he was looking to make a connection or at least possibly find a new client. But I also wanted to make sure that he understood that I was a part of the community, because that's in essence almost like early compensation for letting you know that by you putting yourself out here, by you hustling, there is a reward for that. You reap what you sow. He was sowing a seed, even if it was just a card.
Yeah.
But had he been too afraid to approach, he may not know that I'm a person that produces multiple videos throughout the year.
Exactly.
Right. And though he was targeting my daughter at the time, offering a potential highlight reel for her and her development, that may be the last thing that I need, but I might need somebody to edit some podcast interviews, for example. You see what I'm saying? So you just never know. So I said, I appreciate you letting me know what you do, because you never know who you're talking to in the city. And it's so small that you can randomly run into people. I don't suggest it as a strategy to anybody who's listening.
Right.
But the fact that he was willing to share, the principle is let people know what you do. Right. And musicians especially, even in a time like this, because as the economy comes back and as COVID goes away, prayerfully, opportunities for musicians will become plenteous again. And people are going to have to know to call you, because there's going to be 300 musicians vying for the same opportunity at that restaurant, for example. So why would they call you when they have 100 more names and business cards to go through? So that's where you're talking about character. And so talk to us a little bit about why taking the unpaid gig sometimes leads to numerous paid gigs.
It's all about building relationships. If people never get an opportunity to see what you can offer, like, you're not going to get calls. How can you grow if they can't even see it? Like, you have to humble yourself first and foremost, and then secondly, you have to do that. That's, if you're a true entrepreneur, a true hustler, if you want to call it that, like, you have to have, you got to be thinking ahead. You can't just look at the now, and you got to look at, okay, if I do this, how could I benefit? Like, how can, this help my career? How can this help my business? Like, as a business person, as a CEO having your own business, you have to make plenty of investments in your equipment. The microphone you're talking in right now, that's an investment. But you have to be willing to invest, not just money. You have to invest time. You have to invest all of that. You have to time practicing, time doing paid gigs. It's all an investment. You have to look at it. It's all about your mindset.
These days, you have to spend a certain amount of time as well learning the gear. It's one thing to make the investment. It's another thing to actually learn how to use it properly, right?
Right. That takes time.
Which can keep the phone ringing, because when people know, hey, Nate, I need you to drop some saxophone tracks. I need some alto sax on this album. I need to know that you know how to run Pro Tools and Logic remotely.
Come on now.
You got a proper mic, and you got a file exchange service, maybe like a Dropbox account. If you're unwilling to do all of that, we can't do business.
Exactly.
You're taking yourself out of the game by not having those skills in a digital world.
Yes, sir. Agreed. It's you have to invest. You have to not, and it's not just money. And people always think that it's only about investing money. Yes, that is a part of it.
That's one investment.
You have to invest. Yeah, that's one of them. You just have to invest time, and you have to invest time around with people. People have to see you. I mean, even when I first moved here, I had to go to plenty of open mics and jam sessions and all that good stuff. I mean, I slowed down now, but back then, when I first got here, I had to really be out there. Cats had to see me. They had to know I was here. And
but those weren't paid. You don't get paid to go to open mics, right?
Oh no, not at all.
You're spending time that you could be spending at home.
Money. Yeah.
Watching Netflix, even rehearsing. You could be rehearsing during that time, not necessarily doing something unproductive.
Right.
But even if you're the best sax player in the world, if you're just at home rehearsing and you're not videoing and releasing YouTube videos of you practicing or at least recording or creating a cover of something, if you're literally just home practicing, the guy who's half as good as you but is out at the open mics for free is going to get more work.
Exactly.
He'll beat you to the tour bus every time.
Right. That goes back to, it's not just about talent. It's not about talent alone. There's a whole lot that goes with it, and you have to really hone in on that and really just work that system correctly.
Hmm. That's powerful, Nate. That's good. I'm sure the listeners are going to glean a lot from that. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you, because not everything is easy in this business. So, what are some of the challenges and obstacles you've had to personally overcome to sustain yourself as a professional musician?
One of the biggest obstacles was myself actually
Wow.
mentally, in any, we're all human. You have self-doubt, you have, it's a, like you said, it's 3 million saxophone players in Atlanta alone. So I'm like, how am I gonna, fit in? How, first of all, you're not meant to fit in, but that's a whole different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And but like, what do I have to offer? Like, what can I do? You start having these doubts and stuff, and that's what will hold you back. You can hold yourself back from going forward and from jumping. Yeah, you'll create this doubt, and that was one of the obstacles I had. And also, I was so focused on playing music for musicians, and from an artist perspective, I wanted to. I was so, I want to impress this person, that person, and if they're not impressed, and I must not be doing this right, and all that stuff. So all of those things worked hand in hand, and they created obstacles that didn't have to be there. So that was one of the first biggest ones. Now, secondly, when I first moved here, of course, trying to just get myself out there and just meet people, that was an obstacle within itself. But it didn't take long because, like I said, I took a step out and I put myself out there. I built relationships, and I showed that I'm more than just a good sax player or a decent sax player. I can offer more than that. Shoot, when we do a corporate gig or a thing of that nature, I'll help out. Load in, load out. I'll do something to show that, hey, I can add some type of value other than just playing a saxophone. And a lot of times that stands out. Stuff like that stands out, and people they hone in on that. They see that, they're like, okay, I'll call him back.
People pay attention to that because the gig is really the gig is the easy part, right?
Right.
All of the preparation, all of the logistics for all that want to be, in the entertainment industry. It's everything else that happens before the lights, the camera, and the curtain.
Right.
Before they open, that's what people are paying attention to, because a lot of people can do the execution of the show.
Right.
Musicians are a dime a dozen, right? Great singers in Atlanta, LA, etc., a dime a dozen.
Right.
It's sometimes it's the little things, like being willing to help drive in the middle of the night when the driver, who is also in the same gig, is falling asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to take advantage of that moment and rest, consider the fact that they need the same rest and maybe offer, hey, I'll do it and I'll drive for free. You don't have to pay me.
Right.
That's because that's getting everybody back home, so that we can also go back out again safely, alive.
Right. Exactly. Most importantly,
those are things that I think a lot of people look, and that's where your mentality, I believe, has to shift from being a taker to a giver.
Right.
We all give and take is a part of life, right? We all have to give and we all have to take. But I think sometimes it's easy when someone else is providing an opportunity for you to just take. But when you can give back to the opportunity giver, that's going to be hard for the opportunity giver to forget. They're going to feel that much more than a thank you.
Right. Exactly.
They'll remember that one for months.
Yes, that plays a major part in everything. And that comes with humility and also, I mean, yes, at the same time, know your worth, know who you are, but at the same time, even as musicians, this gift is not for us. We're all servants. Like, this is for the people. This is for music is therapeutic. Music is necessary. It's essential. All of that. Like, this is stuff that this is not about us. So we first and foremost have to have that mindset when we have this gift, and we have to understand that first. And if once we do that, then it'll be easier to be able to hey, I see you getting sleepy. You need me to drive. I'll help. that'll come easier. And like you said, people remember that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like myself, like if I hire somebody and they go above and beyond, I'm going to remember that. Not take advantage of it, but I mean, but at the same time, I'm gonna remember that, and like I'm gonna be more compelled to call them over the guy that's killing and doing X, Y, and Z. But he don't listen to any of the music, or he late, all this type of stuff. So all that stuff goes hand in hand. So yeah,
our industry is no different. In other words, you've got to find ways to do more than just what is required.
Right.
When you only do what is required, you actually put yourself at risk.
Right.
You're an easy replacement when you only do what is required.
Yes.
To give yourself an edge, you need to find ways to do things that are often unmusical, that require zero talent.
Yes.
And those are ways that you'll stand out like a sore thumb in an industry that's crowded with talent. Powerful.
Right.
Nate, you said something very powerful, man. Music is a gift, and gifts were made to be given.
Yes.
Made to be given away. So our gifts, as you said, are not for us.
Exactly.
So we need to keep that in mind as we're out doing what we do. As we give the gift of music, we're not even giving it just for ourselves. We're giving it for others who don't have the ability to communicate that gift. So that's a powerful statement.
Yes, sir.
Good stuff. So we talked about this before. I'll ask you one more question about the idea of family, because you're a family man. Is there a balance?
Yes. Oh, I have no choice. I have no choice but for there to be a balance. It's definitely a balance.
But is it lopsided? Is it, because I've found it challenging as a father myself and a husband. I can't give equal time.
Yeah.
To things. So when people talk about balance, what did you mean when you say that you have to find balance?
Well, in order for everything to be successful, as far as your family and your marriage, you have to have some type of balance, some type of, and when I say that, I'm not saying that, like you said, I can't give 100% time to both entities. But if back to what we said about having a partner that understands that helps balance everything out, because we work together. Like if I'm on the road, she knows that, she understands that, and she'll take care of the kids or whatever needs to be done at the house. Like, and vice versa, she has to go to work and I'm home. It's just like any other family. It's just that it takes a lot of adjusting and compromising and working together, just like any relationship. So it's nothing. How to say it? It's not impossible. Clearly, we know that. But that when it comes to balance, it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily just time. It's, you have to balance, like, just attention. It's a lot. It's a lot. But yes, there is balance. But like I said, that because my wife, she understands my schedule and what I'm on the road or have to go do a studio session or whatever the case may be. Because she understands that's what helps the balance, keeps everything balanced as a whole, if that makes sense. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You're also a member of an illustrious fraternity.
Indeed. Yes, sir.
Tell us about your fraternity and any way that may have given you an edge or an advantage in life in general, and particularly your music pursuits.
Yes. Well, I'm a brother of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and it's definitely instilled a lot of principles in me. We stand on principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. And those 4 principles alone have definitely imparted a lot in me and helped me to grow as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a musician, as a person in general. And being surrounded by these brothers that have like mind, like attainments, and it's definitely been a pivotal point in my life as well. My father's an Omega, my grandfather, he's an Omega, my uncles, and so it's deep in the family. So they were great examples of men for me growing up. And so when I went to college, it wasn't a question about it. Like I knew what I was going to do, and yeah, I've definitely grown since then. Since I've joined the fraternity, I've been in the fraternity for 12 years now, And yeah, it's played a very pivotal point. And even with that, like my brothers have, they supported me in, my career as well. I definitely have to give the fraternity credit, because I've gained a lot of support in business, just from my fraternity brothers alone. So that it's played a major role.
Very
So,
good. Very good. You are a songwriter,
yes.
a producer, an artist yourself.
Yes, sir.
That's something that a lot of people that know you well know, but some people that may have only seen you play out may not realize
Right.
that you also create music. Talk to us about your songwriting process. What's your creation process like when you go in the studio?
Really, I usually go in there already having something in mind, or melodies and chords. And well, a little fun fact: I have perfect pitch. So basically,
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, exactly. So I know the note. I hear the notes already. I already have the chords. So I just go in the studio. I'll tell the producer. And my producer, Dana Mantuzo, Day Day, it was better known as Day Day. And I know you're familiar with him.
Oh yeah.
So he a fellow musician. So I'll tell him the chords and B flat or whatever, and he'll just we'll just create a foundation, and we just build from there, and just kind of just trial and error, see what works. And yeah, that's it. Isn't really no like big secret way how I did it. Just that's pretty much the basic. I just have something already in my mind, or just something in my head, and I just put it down on paper.
Mm-hmm. So what is the message? I'm not sure if this is the focal point for you or not, but most artists tend to have a message, but your music is mostly instrumental. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So
it is.
What message, even if instrumentally, do you want the listener to get when they consume your music?
I just want people to be inspired, just in general, just by listening to it. And like we spoke earlier about hearing the soulfulness in the music. And one of the reasons I like the tenor sax, well, I love the tenor sax, particularly because to me it sounds the closest to a voice out of all the saxophones.
Okay.
And so I even growing up, I didn't even talk about this. I listened to mostly vocalists than saxophonists. Then growing up, like that's what I mostly I listened to a lot of saxophonists like Kirk Whalum, Gerald Albright, a lot of soulful saxophonists. And but it was something about like vocalists like Music Soul Child, Fred Hammond, Floetry. It was Neil. So there's a lot of just different genres and in styles of singers and vocalists that I listened to. And that's basically, I want to, when you listen to my music, is very melodic and lyrical without having actual words in it. So that's pretty. I want my music to inspire people, to make people be at peace, because it's a lot going on in the world just in general, not even just right now. It's been a lot going on for a long time. So it's like I want this music to just calm you down, to just give you a minute to just, hey, let me just get my mind off this and just listen to some good music. So that's one of the ultimate goals that I want to be in. And just even with my story, I want that to be inspiring as well, outside of just the music itself.
So who are or who were your musical mentors and influences?
Definitely Kirk Whalum. He was the very first soulful saxophonist I ever heard. And, me being a church boy, just he had the gospel according to jazz, and that was my first like real jazz album that I heard.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was something about it. Like he spoke to me. Like when he played, it was like, ooh, it's like a voice. It's like he was making it sing. I was like, man, I want to sound like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was my mindset. And I used to listen to him all the time, try to imitate, try to, the licks and everything, try to play it. And yeah, he was a pivotal. He played a big part. Also, Gerald Albright as well. I love his sound. I love, his approach to music. Also Mike Phillips. He played a major part as well. Played for Stevie Wonder, a whole bunch of big names, and he played a major part. I like the fact that he had hip hop type of swag, incorporating that with jazz. That was cool to me. I'm young, in school, so I'm like, that's cool. I mean, because that was my first time seeing that, that together like that, especially as a saxophonist. I was like, yeah, that played a major part. And also, and to go back to what you said about my message, like, it's about the soul. It's about soul. I just wanted to be soulful, and I just, I like to incorporate hip hop. I like to incorporate, jazz, of course. But it's not, my music is not your typical jazz music. It's not even, I wouldn't even categorize it as smooth jazz. It's just music. It's just music. But back to your initial question. Yes, like I said earlier, I listen to a lot of vocalists. And Karen Clark Sheard, all the Clarksons. I used to imitate all of their runs, like all of that stuff. Like that's what I listened to a lot. Like I used to be back in like high school. I remember one summer I had the whole summer I used to have my Discman. If you remember the Discmans back in the day,
yeah.
I had I used to put my CDs in, put my headphones on, and just play, and just imitate what they playing. I'm sure it didn't sound good out there to my parents and everybody else, but hey, in my mind, I just sounded great, man. Like all that, those type of things played a major role in what I do now, and helped me to find my sound, and what I just pretty much, as we all do, we pick up things from other, musicians or other influences and make it our own.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, and that's what I did, and it's like, yeah, it changed my life.
That's awesome. What's next for Nate Myers Music LLC?
I'm currently in the studio now, just working on just original music, still just finishing up everything. I have most of my music already done. I'm just kind of just doing the last minute kinks and stuff, but yeah, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be real nice. I'm excited for everybody to hear it. I'm very excited about it.
And how much work is there out there right now? When you think about your body of work that's been commercially released, do you have a certain amount of albums or singles that people can go and find? And we'll talk about where to, but how many songs do you have currently out in the global marketplace?
Yes, all of my music is available everywhere online, everywhere music is sold. You can also go to my website, natemyersmusic.com, and go to the store and purchase it personally from me. So, yes.
Cool. And so social media, where can they find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Nate Myers Music, NateMyersMusikk. You can also find me on Facebook at Nate Myers the Fourth, Nate Myers, IV, Roman numerals. And yes.
Cool. So as we wrap up, any parting words that you would like to leave with our listening audience? This has been a great episode. You are a man who's doing it well, and continuing to strive to reach numerous goals in the music and entertainment business. What nugget might you leave with the listening audience to encourage them to stay along their Musically Hitched journey?
There's only one you. There's only one you. Don't be dismayed by, how many people are doing the same thing you're doing. Just focus on what you have to offer and make sure whatever it is, it adds value to whatever you're doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here, the one and only businessman, entrepreneur, saxophonist extraordinaire, family man too, Mr. Nate Myers. Nate, thanks for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure having you.
Likewise, thank you.
This is Musically Hitched with Zach Reynolds Jr. We'll see you next time. Supporting this podcast is easy. Just hit the subscribe button. See you on the next episode.